I can't understand. It's too close for comfort. This heat has got right out of hand. It's a cruel, cruel summer. Leaving me here on my own. It's a cruel summer. Now you're gone.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Red Net Show, where it's always morning, even in the afternoon. I'm your host, Jay Edgar, and I'm joined again at the triumphant return of the one and only Libertarian Redhead. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's been a couple weeks.
I know, I hope everything is working well for you now at this point, because, we've been going through a lot of stuff going on here, and you've been going through a lot of stuff on your own, too, on top of this, too, and I just...
Yes.
I'm glad that we were able to have Trent over here and help out last week. And, I did have to fly. No, I didn't fly solo. Which week? I did fly solo one week, didn't I?
Maybe?
Yeah,
I don't
that
know.
first week when you found out. And then Linda came in and helped us out. It's been 3 weeks since you've been here. And I don't think you and I have talked since the charity stream.
Yeah, I don't think we really have. So for those of you that didn't know, or maybe Ed didn't tell you, and that's okay. On Monday the 12th, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that was the date. Monday the 12th, my grandmother passed away. And she was the grandmother that I was the closest to when I was a kid. She was a grandma that picked me up after school, spent time with her in the summer. She took me to summer school, would go get ice cream, like just different things like that. So that was really hard. And then I don't know if it's because of COVID or they're just doing things slightly differently now, but used to, at least this is how I remember it, you used to do a viewing on one evening between like 4 and 6 p.m. and then you do the funeral the next day. They don't do that anymore. They do it all on one day now. So the next Monday, we were doing that like all day long. So that was just 2 Mondays in a row that I just couldn't be here. And so glad you guys stuck around, and I'm glad we had friends to help Ed out, and I am very glad to be back.
And we got to talk about this after the show here too, but it looks like we may have another interview coming up next week as well. I reached out to one Trent Ortner who was just over here helping out, and he said that he wants to come on and talk about the Redacted Caucus because he came on late that day. I didn't get a chance to really ask him about that, so you and I are going to sit down at some point over the week and pre-record a little interview with him and figure out what's actually going on with the Redacted Caucus. So stay tuned, and we will keep you posted on that and how that goes. Of course, that will be pre-recorded and premiere in the middle of the show next week if we can get that all organized, ready to go. So definitely look forward to that as well. But Elaine, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the news over the past week, but we have got a lot of stuff to get to this week. And, well, it's mostly going to revolve around two big news stories. A smattering, like I thought it was going to be here. So I think we should possibly get right down to it because, I know we're going to spend some time talking about this thing with the Chauvin verdict. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it at this point. So let me get my show notes back up here if my Chrome ever decides that it wants to pick back up. I hope I don't drop off here because that's what it seems to do every time Chrome locks up and then the stream goes down, which it looks like it might have for just a second.
Check out, while Ed's doing that, you guys should check out, there's a bot in the chat that's going to drop a link to our new Buy Me a Coffee page. And if you guys are not familiar with what Buy Me a Coffee is, it's basically like a tipping system. So if you like what we do and you want to leave us a $3 or $5 tip, you can. This is different from Patreon in that it is not a subscription, so you don't get charged every single month. So you can just throw a few bucks at us if you like what we're doing, or if we say something funny or whatever you want to do. So that is totally up to you guys, but that link is already up at least once, and it'll pop up occasionally in the chat too.
Yeah, I set that up on a regular timer throughout the stream here. Looks like we're frozen on video. I don't know if we've got audio over here, but I'm looking over on YouTube, and we might be frozen. Looks like everything is going on DLive again. So, oh, there we went. We just moved again. All right. Yeah, we did have a brief little drop off the internet with that, but we still got a bunch to get to, even if the internet's going to hate us here.
It is back up on YouTube.
After a full year just about. We heard what happened with Derek Chauvin this week, so we're going to talk a bit about the lead up to that because our stories parted on Monday with me and Trent Ortner right as they were getting ready to go into deliberation. So we'll talk a little bit about what led up to this, what the verdict was, and what some of the aftermath could be off of this. So we're probably going to spend a lot of time talking about this, so strap yourselves in. However, conveniently, right before all this happened, another police shooting happened in Columbus, Ohio. So we'll talk a bit about what happened there. And there seems to be a dichotomy on viewpoints and a dichotomy on camera angles too. So could this be the next one that we protest for another year? We don't know, but we'll find out what's going on with that. The Biden admin has also been busy this week, including suggesting a capital gains tax hike, which caused the Bitcoin price to tumble throughout last week. So we'll talk a bit about what happened there. And a nice big climate summit, including the fact that only one head of state this week had his mask on. So we'll talk a bit about some of what was going on with that. And we'll close out the show with the election audit that happened over the weekend that's going through, could possibly be taking 2 weeks, where this came about, what this could mean going forward, and how the state Democrats in Arizona tried to stop it and then changed their minds at the last minute. So, plus I got a little bit of surprise stupidity, which might not actually be that much of a surprise to you, given how publicized this has become on the news. I just want to get your reaction off it because it was really, really stupid, and it happened really, really, like, I found this morning when I was doing Contemporary. It's that recent, so we'll talk about that. And that's going to be our show. It's going to be all this and more over here on the little podcast that could. I want to thank everybody who came by last Saturday, not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before, and helped us get up to $1,887 for our charity for suicide prevention, a number that I didn't even dream was possible coming out of this little channel here. So everybody who came by and donated to that, today will be the last, and you can still hit exclamation point donation if you want to donate and get a link to that in both the YouTube and the Twitch chats today. You can still get that link, but after the show today, I'm closing that, and we are donating whatever money is in there to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. But we are also streaming live, as mentioned, to Twitch, YouTube, DLive. No more Periscope because they shut that down, but you're also streaming to my Facebook page and Trovo as well. So come on over there, check us out on any platform you choose, or if you can't catch us live, you can catch us back on the audio platforms over on Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and what's the other one? Apple Podcast. You can catch us on any of those, and if you're on Apple, leave us that 5-star rating and a good review that helps us move up the charts. Or we are closing out on our reconstruction project on the Freedom Scoop Media Group as well, so come on over there and check us out over there. Pardon our dust, bookmark the page, and once we are back up and running, we'll have another opportunity where you can head on over, check out the website, and support us or your favorite creators directly. We've got a lot of great things coming down the pipes and ready to go to help build this up and let this be the actual little podcast that could. So, well, I think we got to dive into this at this point just because we've got so much here. I don't know if you're looking at this now at this point. I know you hadn't caught up on the show notes here, but let's get to it, shall we?
All right, let's do it.
All right. First, I want to talk about what happened out of D.C. because it turns out the medical examiner decided that Brian Sicknick didn't actually die at the Capitol. He died a day later due to, and wait for it, natural causes. So that means that the only person who actually died as a result, because they also counted the other ones, because they said 5 initially, but now they say heart attack, drug overdose, the one guy tased himself in the balls for whatever reason, I can't figure it out. But now the death count, that brings that down to 1 for the deadliest Capitol insurrection in history, and it was one of the protesters who was shot unarmed by a Capitol police officer. So did you hear anything off of this one, or?
I hadn't seen this yet, but it's very interesting. He was awfully young to have had 2 strokes.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, but I guess he was having problems with this earlier on in life too, so this wasn't the first for him, and I'm a little bit surprised he was on active duty for it. Usually with something like that going through your system, they put you on a desk immediately. Wouldn't you think?
I would think so, but you never know.
That's fair. So that, I think that do you think that changes the dynamics of what this is on the Capitol riot at this point? Because, that's what they've been trying to do. It's all these evil MAGA people caused all this death and mayhem on that day, and the only person who killed anybody was the Ashley Babbitt shooter.
Right. I do think it's going to make it impossible for prosecutors to charge anyone in his death. But I don't know. I don't think that, I mean, I didn't see this, so I can assume that if I didn't see it, that a lot of other people probably haven't as well. So I don't think it's really going to change the overall perception of what happened that day for anyone. I think people who believe it was an insurrection are still going to believe that, and people who don't believe it was are still not going to believe that.
Hmm.
So the only thing I think it impacts really is the legal case.
Well, that's fair. So we'll continue to watch this, and I can't imagine why the mainstream media wouldn't want this to be publicized. I mean, when you really think about it, I mean, oh, we've
Narc.
been spreading this narrative for what has it been, 4 months? We've been spreading this narrative for 4 months here. Oh, this comes up and this doesn't fit our narrative.
Hmm.
To the dustbin with you.
Right.
Did you see the Florida anti-riot bill this week?
I did not. What's
Governor
this?
DeSantis on Monday signed an anti-riot bill, and I didn't have time to get it onto Monday Stack, but yeah, he came out and gave a press conference talking about this anti-rioting bill that was coming out, imposing harsher criminal penalties on violent protesters. Which this has been talked about in Florida for a while now, and the legislature was moving forward and doing it, but now it's officially been signed in. So, anybody trying to escape or flee a protest in a vehicle has legal liability protection if he hits a rioter or protester, if he has to go through a crowd to do so. You still have a duty to retreat, but you have to be attempting to retreat in order to do so. There are stiffer penalties if you get caught rioting. I believe, what did he say? It's going to be X amount of time in jail. Basically, he went down through to try to find any way to try and discourage any sort of rioting in the state. So, but that wasn't what caught the waves on this particular story. What caught the waves off this one was what the sheriff in Polk County, who reminded everybody last summer that everybody in Polk County was armed and wanted to use their firearms. The sheriff in Polk County had this to say at that very same press conference. Let's have a listen to what that sounded like.
I've got something I want you to see. This is what we enjoy in Florida. This is the Florida we know and love. This is what our governor, our speaker, our president, this is what all these law enforcement officers and administrators and sheriffs and police chiefs and their officers do every day. They guarantee an environment where you can come here and have fun. Heck, you can even have more fun. Here's another picture. This is the Florida we know and love. We're a special place. And there are millions and millions of people who like to come here. And quite frankly, we like to have them here. So we only want to share one thing as you move in hundreds a day. Welcome to Florida. But don't register to vote and vote the stupid way you did up north. You'll get what they got.
So he made waves with that statement, and I mean, I can understand it. Maybe not quite the way that he said it, but I can definitely understand the message he's trying to bring in. But what did you think of that?
I mean, I couldn't see the pictures that he showed.
It was basically pictures of Disney World and the beach.
Oh, okay. I thought he was like showing pictures of like gator hunting or something.
A methed out toothless guy chasing down some innocent bystander down the street with Florida Man on his t-shirt.
I hope not. I get it, but I don't know. I think it kind of opens the door, like some critics have said, it opens the door for law enforcement to potentially harass people who are not being violent or who don't intend to be violent.
Well, yeah, there's definitely got to be some sort of accountability for that too. And I've not sat
Right.
down and read this one, and I'd actually like to see if there is accountability on the side of law enforcement.
Right. And because you have to prove, and it sounds like you have to prove intent.
Mhm.
So if you arrest someone and their backpack is full of bricks, okay, you probably have intent there. Like you could probably prove intent with that. But if you arrest someone and their backpack is just full of like water bottles and things like that, like to maybe protect against inadvertently getting sprayed with pepper spray, that's defensive, not offensive. So you couldn't really say that that person went there intending to be violent. They just went there intending to, prepare for the worst, but hope for the best kind of a thing. That would be a lot harder to prove intent. So I see this as potentially just further burdening the criminal justice system. I don't know that there's a way around it. Um, it might be, I don't know what Florida laws are regarding rioting and things like that already, but it might be a lot of duplication
Yeah.
in their penal code. Kind of
Well,
like when you try to, like when they passed the anti-lynching bill.
well, yeah.
Lynching implies you've killed someone. That is already illegal. So, like, making it more illegal doesn't really do anything. It's always been illegal.
Super duper secret illegal.
Right, like murder is illegal. Ta-da!
Well,
Nothing's changed.
and with that, it's one of the things that actually did bother me about this, other than the fact that the sheriff's comments were completely based, and I did like the sheriff's comments off of that, but one of the things that actually did bother me is, like you had said, the duplication. And furthermore, out of all the states in the country, Florida seemed to see some of the least amount of rioting. Like, you heard about Chicago, you heard about Minneapolis, obviously,
Hmm.
and Portland, and New York City. You didn't hear a lot of it out of Portland. Or, I'm sorry, Florida, not Portland.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
heard a lot of it out of Portland.
there were a couple of like isolated incidents where people that were dining outside got, accosted and yelled at and things like that. But that's far from, being an actual riot. So um, I think this is more of like, I think the legislation is meant more as an offensive measure than anything else.
It could be. We got to keep going here. Following backlash, the nomination of Dr. Drew for LA Homeless Commission got pulled. So, if you're keeping up on the story, Dr. Drew Pinsky was supposed to actually be sitting on a homelessness commission in order to help address what's going on with homelessness and try to possibly stem the problem at its root rather than just throwing a bunch of money back at it. But they found out that he was a Republican and a Trump guy in Los Angeles, and they said, nope, we're not doing this shit no more. So he got pulled off of this.
That's interesting.
Do tell.
Well, I think there's typically the attitude that I see from conservatives most often is that and liberals do, like leftists do this too, but in a different way. Or about different issues, I guess I should say. With issues like homelessness and things like that, things that are considered, societal ills, Republicans tend to want to criminalize those things. They tend to want to put up homeless spikes so that people can't sleep in certain places and things like that. They want policies like that versus let's expand homeless shelters or let's, because that involves spending money and they don't typically want to do that. And they want to spend money on other things like defense budgets, but they don't want to expand access to healthcare and treatment for addiction and things like that that would actually solve some of those problems at the root. So I don't know. I don't know what Dr. Drew feels personally about the issue, but that might be a reason.
Well, and we may never know at this point either because he's not going to get the chance to come out and read it. And even some of the the more conservative podcasts that I listen to and whatnot, a lot of them keep saying the same thing, that a lot of the homelessness problem is usually rooted in mental illness rather than circumstance, which I could definitely see. And like you had mentioned, the drug addiction as well. So to have somebody who focuses on psychiatry to come in and actually look and see, okay, what can we do about the fact that people want to live outdoors and, there is the mental illness aspect to that. I actually would have been interested to see where Pinsky came on with this.
Also, he's like, I know that he has actual credentials as far as
Yeah.
being a doctor, but he and several other people were basically made for TV by Oprah.
Oh, yeah.
So he's a TV personality.
But he's also a psychiatrist.
Dr. Oz is also an actual doctor, and I don't know if you've watched his show at all in the last few years, but he's kind of cracked up, literally cracked up.
I don't really know who Dr. Oz is. I've heard the name, I just never got bothered to pay attention to who he is.
And Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil isn't a doctor.
She made Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, and Dr. Drew like a thing. And
I thought Dr. True was the guy that just took the call-in show about explaining to teenagers what their genital warts were.
I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, he was on Loveline for like ever.
Yeah, so still, I'm not getting really good like vibes about that, about his
Oh.
expertise in anything.
Well, we'll never get to figure out. So, Apple is letting Parler back on the App Store as of this week.
Hmm.
So Apple and the Senate kind of went back and forth this week, and Apple decided to come out and say, you know what? They put their what was it, the algorithms in to catch hate speech, so we're going to let them back in. Which actually kind of makes me wonder what's going to be the point of Parler at this point, because we know what Apple wants to brand as hate speech. Anything that has to do with freedom or something that isn't progressivism, that's automatically
Right.
hate speech. So is this just going to be sucky and janky Twitter at this point, or is there actually going to be a difference?
I mean, I always kind of saw it as a right-wing haven anyway, even when it was still available mainstream.
Yeah,
It was more of a cesspool than Twitter, which is why I quit using it.
I just never went back into it after they brought it back in. So I don't really have an opinion as to what is on Parler. It's just interesting that now Apple has decided to bring it back.
They probably had some kind of incentive, as in, if Apple brings it back, I'm trying to put all this together in my brain as I'm about to say it. If Apple brings it back, Apple has certain agreements with the government. So does
Ah,
Google and everything else. So if you bring it back into like your family of apps, then you have some kind of control over it, as in you can pull the plug when you want to. But if they're over off existing by themselves and being self-sufficient, you can't do that. You don't have control over it. So if they have a control over it, then that's better than not having control over it.
yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. Well, we'll see what happens with that. Did you see that everybody got piled onto Ben Shapiro this week over his first trip to the Home Depot?
I'm not surprised.
Let's
His
have a
first trip to
listen.
the home, how old is this man? And he has never been to Home Depot before?
He's January to April older than I am. And I'm
How
not
old
actually
is
saying
that?
this. 36. I'll be 37 at the end of the month. Or at the end of the week, rather.
That man, oh my goodness. He's a
I,
soy boy. He is a
yeah.
right-wing soy boy. That's what that is.
Well, I don't know if he's actually ever been to the. That's what people keep saying because, he's standing in front of the Home Depot. He's not awkward. But let's have a listen to what he had to say with that, and then I'll fill you a little bit in on the details of that.
All right, as you can see, I just went shopping at Home Depot. You should do the same. This wood, this board, this magnificent piece of poplar is now mine. All right, as you can
What?
So, this story actually, this was almost a surprise stupidity for this week, and I found something better off of this. So, this story came about because Ben Shapiro, on his radio program, decided to defend the Home Depot because they were coming under fire because they're a Georgia-based company and they were not weighing in on the Georgia voting laws. They were trying to stay out of it as best he could. So, his answer to the boycott was that he was going to go to the Home Depot and shop there to try and get other people to go and shop there and just say, the hell with it. We still want to shop there. But I mean, just to watch the video, you can tell that Ben Shapiro has never been to a Home Depot before in his life.
No, like I said, he's a right-wing soy boy. He's never been to Home Depot. He has never hammered a nail. He has never hung a picture and gotten it level. He doesn't know measure twice and cut once.
But he does
He
have
is,
this glorious piece of poplar.
and it is just as dry as his wife's you-know-what.
Oh, she's a doctor, though. She's a doctor. Anyway, well,
We really can't say anything besides that. Moving on.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is back in the news this week because apparently she and AOC are going to have a debate over the Green New Deal. And
What
she
did we
came
do
under.
what did we do as a country, as a humanity, to deserve that?
I think she's a plant. I really do at this point because there's no way that there's somebody could be this over the top, and we didn't hear about it during the primaries or the general. We didn't hear about it until after she introduced the legislation to impeach President Biden.
She's crazy.
We even heard about AOC before.
She's crazy. Like, she does CrossFit. She's crazy.
Yeah, I still think she's a plant though. I think that she was hired by the same firm as AOC was hired in to cause discourse and make people think that all Republicans are crazy MAGA fucking people. But she did come out and she tweeted this out, and this is why I think this was the tipping point to me thinking she's a plant. She tweets out, and I quote, "I'm glad I ran into you." I have a picture of this too, actually. By the way, hang on.
Please don't try to do her Georgia accent because you're going to fail this.
I am going to fail on it, and I'm still going to do it.
Oh, stop.
She tweets out, "I'm glad I ran into you today, AOC, to plan our debate about the Green New Deal. After finishing reading all 14 pages, like we agreed, I'll schedule our time for our debate." And they came down on her about the all 14 pages part of it, which is actually in the tweet.
Yeah. What did we do to deserve this again? Like, really? Also, when I saw that picture of her, like, full on, front face next to AOC, all I could think about is, like, I feel like she's had injections and work done.
Oh, probably.
Like, her face just looks super puffy. And I was just like, whoa, hold on. I didn't think she looked like that. Like, I've seen other photos of her, and I was like, has she always looked like that?
Yeah,
I try not to get too into that kind of thing. Like, I try not to make comments based on someone else's appearance like that. But it kind of surprised me.
Well, I don't know. I still think she's a plant. I don't think she's for real. I think she's just in there to kind of make Republicans seem crazy at this point, because there's no way at this point that somebody who is a first-term congresswoman with no committee assignments can have this much attention sitting on her.
Well, she would have had committee assignments if she wasn't a wackadoodle.
I think the wackadoodle is planned.
It wouldn't surprise me.
The tinfoil's coming out on that woman.
She's like, she's the closest thing to a QAnon endorsed candidate as we've ever had.
Which is why I think she's a plant, because I don't think she's that crazy. I think she's just acting.
Okay, well then why is AOC not that why is AOC crazy but not acting?
She is acting.
She's just as outrageous.
She is acting.
But nobody's ever said she was a plant.
I have.
Really? When?
Numerous times, because there's no way that somebody could be that dumb and get into Congress with an economics degree from BU.
I don't think she's that dumb, though.
No, I think she's acting. All right, we can debate this, how stupid MTG and AOC are going to be, or we can sit back with popcorn and watch the debate when it comes up, because that's going to be coming up in the near future off of this. We got to talk a little bit about. Yes, I would, absolutely.
Watch party, live commentary, and drinking. Because that's the only way we're going to make it through that. I mean, how much time could they possibly spend debating a bill that's only 14 pages long? And there's only 2 of them. It's not like it's all 535 members of Congress we're watching, because that could stretch out for weeks.
I don't know. I just want to watch it. So,
okay.
Charles Schumer got into the news this week because he made the call for marijuana to be decriminalized by next year's 420. Reading briefly from CNBC, Senate Majority Leader
actually.
Chuck Schumer Tuesday reiterated his call to legalize marijuana at the federal level, saying he hopes to see an end to the drugs prohibition by next year's 420. Hopefully by next time this unofficial holiday, 420, rolls around, our country will have made progress in addressing the massive overcriminalization of marijuana in a meaningful way, in a comprehensive way. I don't know how he's going to get around the lobbyists in Congress who are making money off the paper lobby, but
I don't know how he's going to get around Kamala Harris.
Yeah, that would be a really, really hard one for her to come out and say, you know what, I think it's going to be fine for us to do this.
What was that?
Whenever she gets nervous, she does that weird cackle. But, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it happen. It's just I know why the laws are in place on the federal level. Because there's so many lobbyists that stand to make a bunch of money by keeping it illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And the war on drugs stands to make a lot of money by keeping it illegal.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of congressmen and senators that are tied up with all kinds of lobbyists that give them money to award them prison contracts and all kinds of things. Drug testing facilities, like as a sub part of pharma, is a huge business. And I don't necessarily think that that would go away if cannabis was legalized, because there would still, I mean, like, private employers still have the right to drug test you if they want to. It just means you're not criminal. You're not going to be charged with a crime if you pop positive on a drug test. It just means you lose your job because you're not abiding by the contract that you signed with your employer. But it doesn't mean that you're going to get arrested.
Yeah. So, well, we'll see how that goes. And like I say, there's a lot of people who stand to lose a lot of money over it. It's just like going and trying to end the wars overseas and getting around all the people who are making money off of Raytheon in Congress. There are a lot of people you got to fight to get there.
Don't come for me. I have Raytheon stock.
Nice. The U.S. Postal Service is using its law enforcement arm to covertly track American social media posts and flag inflammatory messages to the government.
Can they just deliver packages and shut up?
I don't know why. Well, I do know why, because they're police that the government can control, but I don't know why the U.S. Postal Service needs its own police enforcement arm.
How many government agencies that don't need a police force have one?
All of them? All of the above. So apparently...
It's just more government goons that can carry guns. That's all it is. That's literally that's the only reason or excuse that could possibly exist.
And when I read this last week, the first thing that popped into my head was the fact that, okay, it's not that the Democrats in Congress, because you know who they're looking for. They're looking for people like you and me, and also people with MAGA or where we go all in their profile, because they're going after Parler and Telegram too. That's who they're looking for off of this. But I mean, why do Democrats say that they hate the police when they have all these police that they control that they love? Like the Capitol Police, like this, like the IRS.
There was a great clip, I don't know if you played it while I was gone, where Spike Cohen was on Kennedy, and he was on with a Democratic strategist. And she was just like, oh, abolish, defund police, blah, 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 make everything community-based and all this kind of stuff. And the more she kept talking, like, finally at the end, Spike was just like, I'm starting to be okay with this, because he was being sarcastic. He was, and I'm going to probably totally butcher what he said, but he said something along the lines of, I'm okay with abolishing the police because it means that leftists can't weaponize them against people like me. So maybe you're onto something here. And she just had this giant eye roll. But he wasn't wrong. I mean,
no, I know.
That's what they're there for.
Well, it's disturbing that the post office has police and that they're using them against us like this.
And the acronym is ICOP.
Yeah, I saw that.
Little I, and then cop. Oh, all right. So we're just saying the quiet part out loud now. That's fine.
Mark McCloskey got back in the news because he's considering going for the Senate this coming term.
Really?
Yes, really.
What PR firm told him that was a good idea? Because they were wrong, and they just want to take his money. Like, seriously, he's a MAGA hero. That all they're looking at is dollar signs. They think that people will just donate money hand over fist to him. So they're just like, yeah, let's just get in on that. Let's tell him to run for office.
Well, they're probably right, because I'm guilty of that. I probably would. Just because I want to watch the fireworks and the incendiary comments.
But he's not at all qualified.
Well, he's a personal injury lawyer. He knows the law.
No, he knows personal injury law. Just because you have a general law education, but you specialize in something, You might be really, really good at personal injury law, but you might be totally shit at family law just because that's not what you deal with normally.
Wait, if he's a personal injury lawyer, then he's really, really good at screwing people out of money for little to no cause and getting into the organization. How is he not qualified for the Senate at that point?
But then
You
why would
just
you want to
contradicted
donate to
yourself.
him and facilitate that? Like, you're just making it worse.
Mainly because I want to see the fireworks when he gets into an argument or something or other, because that's going to make a lot of heads explode. And I'm in full collapsitarian mode at this point. This one came out of Oklahoma this week because Fox News decided they wanted to autoplay. So shut that up for a second. BLM protesters storm Oklahoma Capitol over GOP bills protecting drivers fleeing from riots, police from doxing. So Oklahoma put out a series of bills similar to what came out of Florida this week. And now a group of protesters stormed the Capitol and took it over. But it's not an insurrection.
Interesting.
And there was some video that I watched on this morning as well. It does look like that, yeah, they just came in, they were screaming at each other. But the fact of the matter is that, yes, they stormed in, they took the Capitol, they occupied the Capitol floor, but it's not an insurrection when they did it, that's what I found the most interesting off of this. What did you think of this?
I didn't hear anything you just said.
Interesting. I just said that they went in, they stormed the Capitol, they heard about a law that they didn't like, they stormed the Capitol, they occupied the Capitol, but it's not an insurrection.
Where at?
Oklahoma.
Okay. But why?
Because they're BLM, that's why.
No, I was asking, but why are we not labeling that insurrection?
I don't know, that's the rules that they put forward. I would expect that that's how it would be, by the rules that Democrats themselves put forward. But I guess when they like the people, it's not an insurrection. I don't know.
This is how partisanship works. When you do something I don't like, it is the worst thing in the world, and you are literally that guy that ruled Germany in the late 30s, early 40s.
Mm-hmm.
But when I do it, it's fine because my motives are virtuous.
Yeah.
That's what we have.
Do you remember Nick News from when you were a kid? That
No.
propaganda outlet that was on Nickelodeon? Like, they did it
No.
once a month?
I did not have cable because
Huh.
I think my parents might have thought that cable TV was the devil.
It probably was.
It probably was. I didn't have cable until I was in high school. And then all I did was like watch reruns of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Nice. Well, there was a news program. It started about when I was 9, called Nick News, and pretty much all they did was they did the same thing that we do now. They took whatever the most woke topic was at the time, which was a lot of income inequality in the early 90s. But they took whatever the most woke topic was at the time and they made big specials about it. Linda Ellerby used to host it. She's not hosting it anymore. But they just ran another one here because Nickelodeon decides they need to teach children about environmental racism.
What? All right.
Nickelodeon, the cable TV channel aimed for children, ran a segment lecturing kids about environmental racism, the topic that sounds more appropriate for adults than a network that's home to SpongeBob SquarePants.
SpongeBob SquarePants kind of has some adult-themed content.
It has a lot of adult-themed content.
Exactly.
They aired a 1-hour special titled Nick News, Kids and the Impact of Climate Change, hosted by CBS News correspondent Jamie Yuccas, and has an appearance by President Joe Biden's special envoy on climate, John Kerry. So, John Kerry and, what was her name, Jamie Yuccas, decided they needed to go back and lecture children on environmental racism.
What are John Kerry's qualifications in all of this?
He's rich and he can fly around on a private jet.
Which uses fossil fuels at an alarmingly fast rate.
I'm not here to judge the rules. I just come here and tell them. Speaking of people who are famous who probably shouldn't be, Caitlyn Jenner has made it official. She is running for California governor.
Okay.
She hired Brad Parscale, of all people, to be a campaign... Well, she actually hasn't hired him because she's not paying him. But he is advising her on people that she can hire to be on her staff.
Okay.
but she's attempting to recreate Arnold Schwarzenegger's successful 2003 recall campaign.
Okay. All right.
I
Whatever.
don't. You're the campaign advisor. How does this go well for Jenner or California for that matter?
It doesn't, because she has absolutely no governing experience whatsoever. Of course, neither did Arnold Schwarzenegger or Ronald Reagan. So I don't know.
Well,
It ends up being a cash cow somehow for Kris Jenner. Like, it all goes back to Kris. It all always goes back to Kris. Like, she's just going to get to be the momager again, except it's going to be Caitlyn Jenner instead of her kids.
well, we will definitely see what happens off of this. It's just, for all this, I can't even imagine what's going on with this and how this will go, because, you've got the identity politics on this, which doesn't usually play well for Republicans because Jenner is a transgender, so that's going to turn a few eyes on the Republican hopefuls, but he's also famous. She's almost also famous. I just dead named, and now I'm going to get shut down on YouTube. I don't even know how this goes, this is a jungle primary too, so I don't even know if she's going to get on the ballot at this point.
Yeah, who knows?
But even if she does,
she's probably one of the better funded candidates. Actually, I'm going to Google real quick what her net worth is, because I don't know what it is.
a whole bunch.
A whole bunch?
Yeah. But it's just, is our entire politics becoming a reality TV show at this point?
100 million. Okay.
That's more than I thought it would be. Well, good luck, California. That's all I have to say about this one. All right, and the last one is a story that we've all been telling everybody forever at this point, but now Chipotle has come out and said it. Chipotle CFO admits that $15 an hour minimum wage means higher menu prices, predicts all restaurants would pass cost on to customer.
Who could have predicted this nonsense? Who ever could have foretold the future?
Well, one of the things with
Who could have possibly guessed that people would pass on extra fees and taxes and increasing costs to their customers? That just sounds like nonsense.
I just looked back at our live chat, and I'm going to turn down the frequency on all this stuff here.
Yeah, it's like constant.
Yeah, it is. I didn't think it was going to... When I was setting up the numbers, I didn't think it was going to be that frequent. So next week, I'll have that fixed.
Okay.
We'll dial that back just a little bit. Don't worry. But anyway, going back onto what the Blaze had to say. And yes, of course, we all knew this. But really, honestly, with a big company like Chipotle, who is in the IBD 50 every other week at this point, they're only going to increase their prices like 3 or 4%. So you're going to see a couple cents more on your burrito or your taco bowl or whatever the hell you get at Chipotle.
It's already really expensive. I mean, you used to be able to go get you used to be able to go get lunch at Chipotle and Qdoba and stuff like that for like $8. Now it's like 12.
Yeah.
You can't spend under $10 for lunch anymore, even at fast food places.
And I mean, with that, you're totally right on that. But they're going to see that little bit of increase go up, get 2 to 3%. They're going to absolutely have an increase like that. But what is Jose Lupe's authentic tacos in Wyoming? What are they going to do with one location?
Right.
They're not going to be able to afford to go up 3%, and the Chipotle is going to move in, and they're going to run them out of business because they're going to have a less expensive product, even though they had to raise their prices a teeny tiny bit. And there go Jose and Lupe.
Right. Yeah. I still remember getting dollar tacos on Taco Tuesday in Albuquerque.
Nice.
But still get dollar tacos. So you could get a whole plate of tacos for like $6, and they were 6 whole tacos.
Nice.
Sorry, I love tacos. I'm sorry.
Well, F in the chat for Jose and Lupe, even though they probably don't exist, and I just made that scenario up in my head.
It exists somewhere. There are 330 million Americans living in this country. I'm sure it exists somewhere.
Well, with that, we got to get into the heavy stuff here. So, are you ready? Do you want to do a little bit of live chat before we do this?
I'm not ready. I was joking.
Oh, do you want to do a little bit of live chat before we get into this, or?
Yes, if I can find our live chat commenters amongst all of our bots.
Yeah, I will fix that. That was a bit excessive. I apologize for that.
It would probably be fine if we had like 100 commenters, but
Yeah.
no, it's too much.
Well, and now that I'm seeing
John,
it in practice too, so
yeah. So John is here. Hi, John. John is newly shaved and baby faced because of our fundraising efforts. So if you want to see, we filmed the reveal. When was that? Saturday night?
a Friday night.
Friday night. Yeah, it was Friday night. So that is up on the Generational Gaps channel. So if you want to see beardless John, also John without his sunglasses, which was almost even more of a difference than without the beard.
Mhm.
But anyways, beardless John is over on Gen Gap. So F in the chat for John's beard. His girlfriend is apparently not happy about it.
Nice.
Quest is here. Who else is here?
I see Neff.
William's here. Anon is here. I saw Agent jump in a little bit. Yeah, it's really hard for me to find the comments with all the bots.
I know, I'll fix it.
John said Ron DeSantis is based. Or no, the sheriff is based.
Yeah.
Quest says long live the narrative. Oh, Quest says he was never that nasal, even in puberty with a cold. I believe he's talking about Ben Shapiro.
He is.
Yes. Oh, Quest says he is a beer-based plant.
Nice.
I believe it. He predicts that AOC is going to lose her seat in the redistricting because New York came up 89 people shy of not losing a seat.
Well,
And he
that would
was
be the one
making-
I would get rid of. But she's going to go try and run. She's actually going to try and primary Schumer.
Mm,
So she'll be in the Senate then instead of the House.
that'll be a fight for her.
Yeah, because Schumer's been there for a while.
Yes, he has. He has deep pockets and he has made a lot of friends. And I don't think she's really made that many friends. SpongeBob is too dumb to be racist. Agreed. Philium says he's a bot. Oh, apparently they're all bots.
Yeah, like I said, this was an experiment. This is the first time I've used this, so now that I see how often it posts, I'll cut it down a little bit.
Good choice.
I just can't do it while I'm on air. All right. Well, we know what's coming. Let's talk about this. So, well, let's just listen to what happened first on Tuesday. This past Tuesday, we heard this. There it is.
Members of the jury, I will now read the verdicts as they will appear in the permanent records of the 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota, County of Hennepin, District Court, 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota Plaintiff versus Derek Michael Chauvin, Defendant. Verdict, Count 1. Court File Number 27, CR 6. We the jury in the above entitled matter as to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April, 2021 at 1:44 p.m. Signed, Juror Foreperson, Juror Number 19. Same caption, verdict count 2. We the jury in the above entitled matter as to count 2, third-degree murder, perpetrating an eminently dangerous act, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April, 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Signed by jury foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 3. We the jury in the above entitled matter as to count 3, second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April, 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Jury foreperson 019. Members of the jury, I'm now going to ask you individually if these are your true.
All right. So there it is, the guilty verdict on all three, which did and didn't surprise me.
He looked shocked.
I was shocked.
He looked confused.
I was confused. And after they read off the verdict,
Mm-hmm.
I actually went back and reread the criminal statutes on all three of those charges once again, just to make sure I didn't miss something off of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out, interestingly enough, that Murder 3 and Man 2 are diametrically opposed, because you both willfully went in with intent to harm and also negligently harmed and killed. You can't do both of those at the same time. You can't willfully kill and then negligently kill at the same time. So I'm looking at a lot of this here, and I'm starting to wonder. And
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I have a lot of questions.
That to me almost seems like that's a purposeful mistake. Because how could you make that kind of a mistake?
It's easy. You don't want to see your neighborhood burned down.
No. I mean, how do you file charges like that and get convictions on two of them if they are, like you said, diametrically opposed?
That's the thing about it. And well, first and foremost, Murder 3 should not have been on the table. And from basic, I do still listen to Shapiro. He is a lawyer. For all of his faults, he is a lawyer, and he does understand how that goes. He was one of them. I called my lawyer on this too, just because I wanted to see what she had to say about that, and she told me the same thing. Murder 3 should not have been on the table for this one. Depraved heart. And as Shapiro likes to explain it, and it's probably the best way I've ever heard it explained, is you fire a gun into a crowd. You don't care who you kill, you just want to kill somebody. Depraved heart. Which, given the fact that now you're looking at, okay, now he's sitting back here and doing this to one specific person, that doesn't even exist on this. Murder 3 by Minnesota legal code does not apply in this case. And yet Keith Ellison still put it back up. In fact, that's what we saw back when we were first starting this out. Remember, we talked about the fact that this went to the Minnesota Supreme Court. That's part of the reason it took so long, is this went to the Minnesota Supreme Court to see if they could actually file this charge or not. And the Minnesota Supreme Court came out and said, yes, we're going to carry this charge forward, which I don't understand why.
I don't understand why either. Did they issue an opinion on it? Like they explained why? Or did they just rule from the bench and say, we're allowing it?
I believe it was they just ruled from the bench and I'm allowing it. I never did see an opinion on it, so that's possibly what they did off of that. So they kept that one in here. And we can go through a lot of the viewpoint off of this. I know Hagopian had a take that I found to be completely distasteful based on what it was. And Hagopian actually tweeted out that his thing was getting a dirty cop off the street, no matter what the purpose. He didn't say no matter what the purpose, but that was what I inferred off of this, so that might have been just on me. Getting a dirty cop off the street is not an unlibertarian position, which I understand that, but you still have to have criminal justice with it. You still have to get him on the crime that he committed. You just can't look back and say, well, he was dirty, so just throw him away for whatever charge you can put on him. I understand the libertarian position behind that because,
I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
I hate having these discussions because I'm not a lawyer.
I'm not either.
Okay.
I've read a lot of law, but I debated going to law school, but I didn't.
I think law is just law is just a completely different way of thinking that I don't find myself naturally predisposed to. So I end up having to rely on other people's analysis of it. And I don't love that because everybody has their own bias. Even people that claim to be impartial have their own bias. Ben Shapiro definitely has his own bias.
That's fair.
So could we say that, oh, well, I like Ben Shapiro's take? I mean, sure, you could like it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is the true, decision on what that means.
Okay, I see where you're going with that. I did ask a different lawyer on that too, and that seems to be the same consensus that I was getting to off of that.
Yeah, I mean, it can be the general consensus, but OJ was found innocent. Do we really think he is innocent?
I was too young to know enough about that case, and then I have the trial
He
on
wrote a
FX.
book entitled If I Had Done It or If I Did It. What? I don't know. All I'm saying is that I don't enjoy having these kinds of conversations because it leaves me just to speculation.
Yeah.
And I'm not really comfortable doing that.
Okay. Well, there were other things that went along with this as well, given the fact that now we're sitting here wondering, okay, is this going to be the celebratory riots? Are we going to come back and see this? What does this mean for the culture off of this?
I don't think we're gonna see really anything until sentencing.
Which that's going to be coming up too, and there were other sides with that as well, given on the sentencing. One of the things that came up on the sentencing side is under Minnesota Penal Code, Chauvin is supposed to be holding 12 and a half years max sentence for both of the murder counts, and then an additional 4 years for the manslaughter count.
But the judge can always order those to be served concurrently.
However,
And then he could get credit for good behavior. I say he doesn't serve any more than 6.
you
6
don't
to
think-
8.
Well,
6 to 8 max.
that's where I'm bringing up with this too, because a lot of and where you said we won't see any of the writing until the sentencing, because one of the first pushes out of the prosecution and out of the mob itself was murder 2 carries a provision, and murder 3 does as well, where if the person has a previous criminal record, you can get up to 40 years on it by the judge's discretion, and they're already pushing the judge to push for that extra 40 years.
What was his previous?
He doesn't have one. He's
So
just
how can they do
hated
that?
that much.
Okay, but that's not even legal.
I could argue that what we just saw over the past 2 weeks wasn't legal either, but we're not going to have the law discussion off this. It's on the societal one at this point.
Right.
So yeah, I never thought about the fact that we're maybe not going to see the rioting until we get down to the point of, yes, we're sitting at the sentencing and seeing what happens with this. But interestingly enough, it's going to be 2 months on the sentencing, 8 weeks before he gets sentenced.
Yeah.
And I mean, 8 weeks, obviously, he's not going to be out. In fact, people were celebrating over this video, which I don't know why they were celebrating so much off of this one, because this is actually standard practice, especially with a crime like this. Let's have a listen. It's this one.
Your Honor, the state would move to have the court revoke the defendant's bail and remand him into custody pending sentencing.
Bail is revoked, bond is discharged, and the defendant is remanded to the custody of the Hennepin County Sheriff.
Your Honor, the state would move to have
The entire world took a victory lap over that last sentence you just heard, and that's standard practice. You just got convicted of murder. Of course you're not going to have bail at that point. Your bail is going to be revoked. Because what's
Right.
going to happen? Okay, well, I might be able to go to court before this and try my case and get off on this. But now, I can't get off on this. Why the hell would I come back?
Right.
Of course you're going to be remanded.
I think they were just maybe, and I don't know the culture of Minneapolis, but maybe in the past there have been officers that have gotten convicted or charged with very serious crimes, and they have always been given the benefit of the doubt and always been given bail and always been at home with their family waiting for their trial or whatever. I do know that that does happen. So maybe there's some kind of culture of that has happened in the past up there.
But that's what you're talking about is pre-trial. This
Right.
is after the trial, after he's waiting to get sentenced.
Yeah, I don't know what standard procedure is in that county. Like every county and state kind of has their own little nuances with that kind of thing. It depends on who the judge is. It depends on what the culture around law enforcement is. Like, it just depends on a lot of things. Not all. I should say it doesn't usually happen with a murder charge, especially post conviction. But people may have been expecting him to be given special treatment because it's such a high profile case and he is a police officer.
Yeah, I don't. Well, plus the comic coup, I think, really played a role in this too, because one of the things that's been talked about off this, and I didn't realize this until after the jury came back, and then I went back and I checked the court records afterwards because it's public record. The jury wasn't sequestered, which I didn't know. I thought that they were throughout the trial. I knew that they weren't sequestered during the selection. I didn't realize until afterwards that they were not sequestered throughout all
No.
this.
They weren't until until deliberation.
Yeah. Which on something like this, given the fact that they had to drive back and forth to court through the George Floyd Autonomous Zone, and numerous of them actually living in Brooklyn Center where the other riots are going on, I think I start to understand why they can get all three of these charges off this, because wouldn't you be scared?
Yeah, absolutely.
And in addition to just what we just talked about here, this tweet I got from Clint over at Liberty Lock Pod, and I'll put it up on the screen. This is from Abby Simmons, who is a blue check over at the Minnesota Star Tribune. She's a safety compliance officer at the Star Tribune. I'm sorry, reporter, not officer. She's a safety compliance reporter over at the Star Tribune, and she says, Derek Chauvin's case is now with the jury for deliberations. Jurors 96 and 118 were dismissed as alternates. Here are the bios for all of them. In the Star Tribune, the local Minneapolis newspaper. Now, of course, they didn't put names or anything off of that, but what do you think is going to happen at that point?
I think some of these people are going to use it for personal gain. I think they're going to write tell-alls or do exclusive media interviews, etc. I think it was a bad idea to not have them sequestered. And I think that definitely opens up. I personally think that opens up the case for acquittal.
Mistrial.
Mistrial. Yeah, sorry. See, I'm not a lawyer. I get these terms confused.
Well, mistrial would be a redo of the trial, so it could be yay or nay on acquittal. They would actually go through and do a jury trial again.
Right.
So,
but then
yeah,
the
it
second
does open
time,
the door for...
Yeah, so then this, and I have friends who are like, no, it doesn't. How does it not? It is one of the most highly publicized trials since the OJ trial. And it's a police officer. And you don't think that not sequestering the jury has any bearing? That's ridiculous.
Well, and one of the things with that, too, is that, yes, they're going back and forth to home. Now, they were court ordered throughout this entire process to not pay attention to news, to not watch the news or anything. Which, I don't know. Of course, there's a court order in place, but even if they did abide by that to the letter, you're in Minneapolis. These are all people from the community. They did try to move this trial, but these are all people from the community who are probably sitting there. Somebody's, their phone's buzzing up. They're looking at this and says, oh, my Aunt Sally just told me that they burnt down the Walgreens in her neighborhood. What do I do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Sure, you can turn off the news, but you have to undownload every single social media app on your phone in order to do that, because they are all forms of communication that news uses. And we have this whole, big social conversation that surrounds the news now that, I remember when Facebook was first starting, what did we do? We talked about going to college classes and posting pictures of our food and stuff like that. We didn't talk about current events usually. It wasn't a thing on Facebook then. Now, that's all it is.
Yeah.
And it's very biased depending on who's on your friends list, what pages you follow, things like that, what groups you belong to. If you belong to neighborhood groups, like tons of people I know belong to neighborhood groups, Nextdoor app, all kinds of stuff like that. I could imagine that those kind of apps right now, those groups in that area of the country are busy all the time, constantly.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So I don't, short of, and this is probably a, I was very interested over the fact that they were having this trial both after the presidential election and while we're still in the middle of technical lockdowns off of this, where you still have to have your coronavirus restriction in place, which means that they can't keep the people, the jurors, in their little inside the court, inside of the courthouse room.
Mm-hmm.
You know, under normal circumstances, the jurors come in and they sleep in the courthouse during the midst of everything. They couldn't do that for this, so they're going back and forth to home off of this. So, I don't know. That's definitely a possibility. Plus, Maxine Waters running off her mouth last week. Trent and I talked about that. Yeah, all this to me does come out to say that this was, and I don't want to defend Derek Chauvin. I really don't. Because like Hagopian said, he was a dirty cop. He was an asshole. He had a lot of this, but you know, if he gets tried for the crime of something he actually did,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll be sitting there. And even if they'd have taken it down to third-degree manslaughter, unintentional, I would have probably supported having him go in for that. But the charges that were brought against him were, I guess for me, a bit excessive off of this. But we're trailing back into the legal conversation, so I'm going to try and hold off of that. Sorry.
Okay.
There were a couple other points that I wanted to get to on this, unless you want to talk any more about the trial and, you know, how we landed where we were.
I don't. I think everybody has their own opinion about why it came out the way that it did and what went wrong or what went right or whatever. I mean, so I don't know that our analysis would change anybody's mind necessarily.
One of the things that I do, and we touched on the appeal, so we'll talk about that in just a sec, but one of the other things that came out of this was, and I just mentioned Maxine Waters, and the fact that she was brought up. She came out and she decided to leave Washington, D.C. and travel 2,000 miles back to Minneapolis to come out and stoke the fires, as so it was, during the protests in Brooklyn Center. Well, Kevin McCarthy introduced a resolution to censure her over the week. And on Tuesday, of course, immediately after the trial was over, they went through and they had the censure vote, and it was a regular roll call vote, so everybody had to go in there and register and put their name to this. The measure was defeated 216 to 210 in Maxine Waters' favor, so she did escape censure, which, I mean, you knew that she would. And the House, the way that it was, you knew that that was going to happen. You knew that it was
Right.
It was a show.
Mm-hmm.
However, now, and I forget who it was. Let me see if I can grab the article off of this. But somebody was back out to say that that he was going to regret this. McCarthy was going to regret this. I know I have it in here.
Quest wants to know our thoughts on Starlink and whether it's going to cause too much congestion or collisions in low Earth orbit. I know nothing about that.
I've never heard of Starlink, so
Maybe we can stick it on the schedule for next week.
I will have to look. There it is. That's the one I'm looking for. I have way too much information in for this because it was article after article. Like, two of the contemporaries, Wednesday and Thursday after this, that's just all I talked about was the Chauvin trial for two. So I just, article after article, and I had 30 articles coming off of this. House Democrats are warning that Republicans are opening a Pandora's box after forcing a vote on censuring Representative Maxine Waters this week. Multiple Democrats have introduced resolutions in recent months to censure, even expel Republicans, primarily over inflammatory rhetoric, making false claims about election fraud ahead of the January 6th Selfie Fest. So Jimmy Gomez has come back and renewed his effort to expel Marjorie Taylor Greene, urging more Democrats to sign his resolution, but that still requires 2/3 vote in the House. Steny Hoyer, go ahead.
We've talked about this before. My feelings on Marjorie Taylor Greene, even remaining in Congress, is kind of like, what is the point of her being there? If she can't serve on her committee appointments, then she's essentially working a part-time job. So what are you doing?
Well,
And
right,
it
but
doesn't
that's
look like,
between-
and it doesn't look like they're making any efforts to like get her back into a committee position. So What is the point of her being there?
Well, that's between her and her constituents, though, too, because they would have to do the recall. That's not something the House can do without
Right, I
two-thirds
know.
vote.
I know, but again, I'm basically just questioning, like, why has her district not recalled her? And she basically can't do her job. She's been meat capped.
That's fair.
All she can do is floor votes. That's it.
Well, she still has a voice for the district at that point, though. So, and
Yeah.
usually on a situation like that, that seat would remain empty until the next term.
I just have a really hard time believing that she was the best candidate. Like, how could there not be another Republican that is like less crazy?
I don't
Maybe?
know. It's Georgia, and it's rural Georgia on top of that too. So keep that in mind. I'm not saying anything about rural Georgia, but just remember, it's rural Georgia. So, I mean, with that, yeah, that vote's coming up. Steny Hoyer has come up and brought this up. He's talked about going after Mo Brooks for the January 6th riot if, we're going to start censoring people left and right. Let's see, Steve King, obviously, he got put out, which obviously he said some fucked up shit, and they said, no, we don't want you here anymore. So they got rid of him. Louis Gohmert is another one that's been up on the chopping block. So with this censure vote, it looks like the House definitely wants to come back up and just start throwing censure votes around like they're candy. That was the point that I was getting to with this.
Yeah, they're definitely weaponizing it, which just cheapens it. Like, you should really only use it in extreme circumstances.
Yeah.
But now they're just using it for everything.
Well, they want to get that majority back, and they want to strengthen up their majority.
Hmm.
Going back onto the trial itself, the trial proper, and I've talked to a few people about this. It looks like even Eric Nelson has come out, the attorney for Chauvin, and said that they are going to immediately be filing for an appeal. So we will probably be watching this again in a month or two, which is great. Chauvin is in solitary right now, though. He's in solitary under suicide watch. Did you know that?
I did. I saw that earlier today. I can understand. I mean, I am of the mind that solitary confinement is cruel and unusual punishment. So I don't think that anybody should be in solitary confinement. But I do see why they would do that and not stick him in Gen Pop, because that would be a disaster. I don't think he would survive longer than like 48 hours.
Do you think he gets Arkansided? Do you think he gets Epsteined?
I
Because
have no
that
idea.
crossed my mind.
I don't know. Like, between now and sentencing, maybe, because then, the problem goes away. We don't have to talk about it anymore.
Oh, he can't appeal anymore.
Right, exactly.
That would be interesting to come back and find out.
I mean, I hope not. Like, I don't wish that for anybody. And I do think that most people deserve a second chance. And if he does have to sit in prison for 6 or 8 years or 10 years or whatever it ends up being, I do hope that, he changes his ways and changes his mindset and can come out of it a better person. It's a hell of a way to learn a lesson, but, that's kind of the hand that he's been dealt at this point.
Mm-hmm. If he gets every single maximum, throw the book at you, maximal possible legally allowed sentence available, he will be in for 75 years.
Wow. And how old is he? He's in his 40s, isn't he?
He's 46.
Yeah, so it's basically life in prison at that point. If they came back and said 75 years, I would think that he would probably commit suicide.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but
Especially after the fundraiser we just did.
yeah. Like I said, I don't wish that on anybody.
Well, conveniently enough, even though, actually I say conveniently enough, and that was actually the reason I chose a different intro song for this particular episode, because looking at what happened that same day that this all happened, I thought that we were going to be in for another summer of riots, and ideally a cruel summer. But this actually kind of disappeared.
I actually really love that intro music. Can we keep it? Can we keep it for summer?
Well, maybe. It's kind of situational, and we will see what happens with that. I liked it too,
Vote,
actually.
vote, vote.
That same day, about 2 hours before the verdict came back out, over in Columbus, Ohio, we had another police-involved shooting of a black girl.
Completely different situation though.
Yeah, and this is. It
I
does look
talked a
like
lot
from
about
social.
this one.
Yeah, I
And
know.
so yeah. Hmm.
I
You want to
promise
get
you,
into it? We can get into that.
I promised you I was going to get this started, but I want to lay down a couple of the facts that are going off with this. So, from what the news media is reporting, this was a police-involved shooting where a police officer discharged firearm against a 16-year-old black girl. Looks like she called 911 initially. According to the police officer and both camera angles that we've seen off this so far, she was in the midst of a stab at the point where the police officer shot. But this does honestly look to me like this could be, just from looking around social media, this looks like this could be the next one that they protest. Except I've noticed over the last few days, this seems to kind of have disappeared and not a lot of people are talking about it anymore. We saw a lot
No,
of it on Wednesday, Thursday.
I think it was bad timing because of the verdict that had come down, which of course it wasn't purposefully bad timing. It was just that's when the story broke, and that's because that's when it happened. Um, it wasn't some kind of mainstream media plot to suppress the story. I mean, all the major news outlets ran the story that same day. CNN ran it. Newsweek, I think, had a piece on it, like either that night or the next morning. So they definitely weren't suppressing it. It just didn't catch on.
Well, and I think part of it too was the fact that almost immediately, as soon as because they wouldn't have normally released the body cam footage until they did until they sat down and did the investigation off it. But they put this video out right away. This was the body cam. So let's have a look at this. I've got a small selection queued up for this one. There's no sound, so you're actually not going to be able to hear anything. Well, there's a little bit of sound, but it's really quiet. But the audience can at least see what happened, and I assume you've seen the body cam footage already.
Yeah, it took me a couple days to watch it because I hate watching things like that.
It's hard to watch. So there you go. They pushes the girl down, and somebody goes and pulls her off. And then, yeah, she was in mid stab, and there goes the shot. And actually, the first time I saw this, I was a little bit confused by it because I thought that the mid stab was the girl on the ground, but no, it turns out that she got pulled off the girl on the ground. She got pulled off the girl on the ground, and then was in the process of stabbing another girl, like mid swing, like halfway through the swing, and then the shot rang out. Which this seems to be, I mean,
it was 4 shots actually.
Yeah, and I've got another video here that I wanted to put up here because almost immediately, actually it wasn't almost immediately, it was 2 days later, a neighbor actually noticed that on his security camera in his front yard, he had one of those little Ring cameras that actually caught the scene surprisingly perfectly. I'm a little bit suspicious about how perfectly this caught the scene because it's front and center.
I'm not. Those cameras are motion detect censored. So if someone is near your doorbell, they'll come on. So if it was detecting movement, it would have focused on where the movement was.
Okay, so I didn't realize the camera in there could move. I thought it was stationary.
It depends on which kind you get, but yes, if you walk up, I used to do grocery deliveries a couple years ago.
Okay.
And so I delivered to several people that had Ring doorbell cameras. And so if you moved in front of it, it would focus on where the movement was.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, just the fact that this is, like, the actual piece of action in this footage I'm about to bring up is dead front and center. So I was just a touch suspicious about that, but now that you explained that, I'm not as suspicious, but, well, let's have a watch of this one. I'm going to pause this for just a sec because at this shot angle right here, because you can see off of this, and obviously you couldn't see this from the body cam footage because, I mean, it's out in front and but you can see that he is walking up trying to de-escalate. He's not coming out guns blaring, guns blazing, guns out off of this. which I think was another important part of why this kind of fell off the news as well, because you can see the de-escalation. He's trying. He's attempting at least to do something else
And
beforehand.
he's there alone too, right?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, he's there alone. That was already a dangerous situation for him to walk into because there were 3 girls that were fighting actively. There was a bystander that kind of jumped in and kicked one of the girls. So there was a potential for any one of those people standing there to turn on him.
Especially in this political climate on top of it.
Yes.
And
Yeah, I'm shocked he even went without backup. And I'm
the
sure
rest
he
of that-
probably called backup immediately, but they're not going to get there for 35 minutes at least.
And I'm actually not going to show the rest of that video because it's fairly graphic off of this one. I mean, even more graphic than what we did just see off of the body cam. But, I mean, you can see everything off of this and the body slumped down. And it's... I'm already age restricted off of this video, I promise you. But, yeah, we're not going to throw the rest of that up. But, yeah, of course, what did social media do? Another police officer, and he could have done something else here. I got one more video I want to share with you here. Because this teacher claims that she has all the answers as to what to do with this. Listen to what she had to say. I don't know if you've seen this one or not either, but...
I haven't.
All right.
Am I going to be able
listen.
to hear it?
Yeah. It's a TikTok video, so have a listen to what she has to say.
In my role as a teacher with absolutely no formal combat training, I have removed knives from the hands of 3 students. All of them who had the intent to use the knives at the time, none of whom are dead. So try again.
I could hear your eye roll off of that.
I did eye roll because they may have had intent, but I doubt they were mid-swing.
Yeah.
At that point, it's too late. At that point, the only thing that stops her is something with greater force.
And that's one of the things too. And to me, now LeBron James came out, and I didn't capture the tweet off this just because I thought LeBron James was being a complete idiot. But he came out and he immediately deleted the tweet that he put out saying, because we knew the officer's name almost immediately after this, which is another thing that I don't care for very much. In the middle of the investigation, the officer's name leaked, just like it did with Kim Potter last week up in Minnesota. But LeBron James comes out almost immediately and says, okay, you're next.
Wow.
And then deleted the tweet as soon as he found out that there was the stabbing going on with that. Go ahead.
I have had several discussions about this incident on Twitter, and I was on the Socratic Citizen on Saturday for an hour, and we talked about it. We talked about the root causes of what makes someone what causes someone, a kid, to get to that point. And one, you can see in both of those videos that there is an adult that kicks one of the girls. And I don't know if the other 2 girls are also minors and underage or if they are adults. But I do know that the male was an adult. That was, number 1, very inappropriate. And number 2, there have been lots of news stories, the ones that immediately came out afterwards, saying that Ma'Khia Bryant was a foster child. And she was in the care of the county at the time that this happened. And that's true, she was. But along with that 911 call, she reportedly also called her father and her grandmother. So she has family that lives nearby. Within 24 hours, her mother had been interviewed by the media, and her aunt had also been interviewed by the media.
I've actually got video of the mother.
They had both given statements to the media. So if you are 16 years old and you have a dad, a grandma, a mom, and an aunt all in your vicinity, and you're in the care of child services versus one of them, the adults in your life have failed you. There have been choices that have been made that have led to you as a child being placed in a foster care situation, which means she was under an extreme amount of stress and had potentially been a victim of poverty, drug use in her home, abuse in her home, like any number of things that would cause the county to take her from her home situation and not place her with a family member. So there was a lot going on in her life, or had been previously going on in her life, that would have acted as a stressor for her. And if you don't talk about those things, then you don't ever get to figure out why she got to that point. And maybe this was self-defense. Maybe those girls came to that house. Maybe there had been issues at school. Maybe they had been terrorizing her at school or terrorizing her online. You just, like, I haven't seen any of that come out yet. So I don't know what specifically led up to that situation, but I do know that she was a child. She was 16 years old. Not only did she come from kind of a screwed up family situation in some way, but she also was a teenager. And when you're a teenager, your hormones are everywhere. You're dealing with a lot just because you're a teenager, period. So you put all of those things together. Her foster mother wasn't even home at the time that this happened, which I kind of question that. Like, if you have foster children, why would you leave them alone for long periods of time? But again, she's 16, so 16-year-olds are old enough to be home by themselves.
Right.
For hours at a time, or maybe even the day or whatever. But this is after school, so I get that. But there are a lot of things that fed into this situation, and most of it, I think, goes back to the adults in her life not taking care of her, and not giving her what she needed, not taking care of her, not doing what they needed to do as her family to protect her from even being removed from her family. Like,
Well, I mean, to even finish off on what you're saying with that too, I mean, a lot of the problem here, and a lot of the problem in a lot of the situations we see at this point, it comes back to family.
mm-hmm.
I know we want to come in and have the state have these well, we don't, obviously, but a lot of people who are watching this want to have the state come in and have these grand solutions for everything. But a lot of this comes back down to the family and the family situations that these people have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, Quest said it, she's fully responsible for her actions. She is. She's the one holding the knife. She's the one mid-swing. Like, yes, she is absolutely responsible for her actions in that moment. But she may not be responsible for for whatever got her into that situation to start with. So you have to back up, and you have to back up maybe months or years to figure out what put her on that path, and then how do you stop it? So that becomes an entirely different conversation than what we had with George Floyd. So I can see how this shooting, this incident, does not fit that left narrative of all cops are bad and this was a totally innocent person and they didn't do anything wrong or anything like that. She was doing something wrong. She was about to hurt someone else. And like I said, once you're mid-swing with a deadly weapon, the only thing that stops you is something that has greater force than you. That's it.
Actually, I want to back up on this a little bit too and go over a point that I started to talk about on the generational gap the other night when I was over there. Because we talked about why, because this was still gaining steam at the time. This was still being talked about everywhere at the time when we were sitting down and waiting for John to get all his shaving equipment back ready to go and ready to get off on this. One of the things that I've noticed off of this, and think about the incidents that were attempted to be publicized and then fell off to the wayside. Ahmaud Arbery. You remember that one?
Yes, I do. That one was awful too.
Black man gets shot by vigilantes, essentially. Conservative Inc. comes back out and tries to paint Ahmaud Arbery as this horrific criminal who had a rap sheet a mile long. But for the most part, except for a few extreme thin blue liners and extreme Conservative Inc. people, everyone seemed to agree that the two brothers the father and the son were in the wrong and needed to go to prison for a very, 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 very long time.
Yep.
The two people yelling at each other back and forth in Central Park, once again, that seemed to be the next one that was going to come back and be our big thing about race and racialism. Disappeared as soon as everyone started to agree that both people were in the wrong. Rayshard Brooks. What's the last time you heard about Rayshard Brooks?
Not that long ago, honestly.
we heard about Rayshard Brooks for a second, then we realized, and even a lot of the center left people started to get on board saying, he actually was pointing a taser at a cop. Maybe we shouldn't. This shouldn't be the hill we die on here.
Right.
But we see George Floyd, Jacob Blake. We hear those forever, and we burn cities down over those too, because there was enough distinction where enough people said it was enough to split us almost halfway, where half the people in the country said justified shooting, and the other half of the people, or justified killing in the Floyd case, and the other half of the people coming out and saying that poor boy did nothing wrong. It seems like they're cherry picking and selecting the ones that will get the people divided, and the ones that don't get people divided, just we forget about those ones.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think
Right. So it gives people a very black and white, world to live in. A black and white media choices essentially, where it's either this side is bad and this side is good, or we don't talk about it because it doesn't fit. That doesn't fit within either of those things. If it's a gray area in the middle, we don't talk about that as much. And we definitely don't talk about the root causes of these things, because if we solved the problem, we'd have to find a new narrative.
I think you just summed up politics in general right there.
Right.
If we solve the problem, we don't have something to run on next time.
Exactly. And I've said that for a long, long time. I mean, both the right and the left weaponize different policy points to get people into the voting booth to pull the lever to vote for them, because they're voters are extremely motivated by fear. So the right fear mongers over immigrants, and convinces, conservatives and people on the right that they're going to take your jobs, or your cities are going to be full of rapists and murderers, and and how could you ever want that? And they're bringing drugs over, and they're sex traffickers, and they're this and they're that. All these negative things. They never talk about.
Can I find one of them?
They never talk about the fact that we actually derive a lot of tax revenue off of immigrants. And the left demonizes everyone who isn't woke, who respects rule of law. And the truth is that most Americans are somewhere in the middle, but they find that one issue that gets people really heated, and they just pound on it for months and months on the campaign trail. They pick the top two issues that most of their voter base cares about, whether or not they have any experience dealing with it. I mean, you could have a congressperson running in a district that is completely and totally not only is the county the area that the district that they're running for completely landlocked, but their entire state is landlocked. And they're in
Arkansas.
And they're talking about immigration and border security, et cetera, things that they have absolutely no experience dealing with whatsoever. But they think that they're qualified to make policy decisions about it. Or it could be something else, I'm just picking on that one because it's easy. But, they do that with everything. And the one thing that we didn't talk about was Nancy Pelosi's comments the day of the verdict, which were horrendous.
Wait, hold on. Let's have a listen, because I loaded that one in.
Perfect. You guys have to hear the cringe.
So again, thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice, for being there to call out to your mom. How heartbreaking was that? Call out for your mom. I can't breathe. But because of you, and because of thousands, millions of people around the world who came out for justice, your name will always be synonymous.
Is that the comment you were talking about?
That was the comment that I was talking about. And I posted something on my Facebook page the next day that said, if I die as a victim of violence by the state, someone says that I insinuates that I purposefully died for justice, please take a yeet cannon with my corpse through their bedroom window at 6 a.m. in the morning.
The yeet cannon, I love it.
I would like to be yeeted.
Okay, that was a glasses off one. I like that. Well, and what are the other things to come with? And, I want to step back and talk a little bit about the Floyd, because the Micaiah thing, I think that one's going to get memory hold. Because there, like I said, there are enough people on the center left that are starting to look at this and say, if she was about to kill that girl, what do we do at this point?
Right.
Do you need to go and grab your charger?
It is downstairs. So
I can do some live chat for a little bit.
let's just power through.
Okay.
We've only got 20 minutes left.
Yeah, we do. I do want to step back and talk just a touch about the Rittenhouse thing.
Again?
Because now that we've got the verdict from George Floyd, that does call into question now whether or not mob justice, so-called, will influence how that trial goes. And I'm a little bit concerned about that right now. I am a little concerned that that's going to play a factor off of this. Now, obviously, it's going to be different states. So there's going to be a little bit of a difference into that. But that's the other one, because honestly, I'm going to come out and say that was a completely justified shooting. I can't be objective in that, just looking at the situation. But there are so many people on the left who have convinced themselves that Kyle Rittenhouse got up in the morning, and I always use the same analogy, that he got up and he buttoned up his shirt and he came in and said, I'm going to go hunt X person. And that's the other big divisive one that we see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll be the next one that'll spark riots and protests and things like that.
I don't think he's going to prison. Just based on everything I've seen off the video. And I've seen multiple angles of this.
I don't think he is either, based on the situation, but also based on his age. He's so young. I don't think that they would really give him any hard prison time.
He's going up for first degree, though, too, keep in mind.
Yikes. I forgot that.
First degree premeditated.
Okay.
But the judge is also not in favor of the prosecution in this case. In fact, remember, just a few weeks ago, he failed to register his change of address, and the prosecuting attorney came out and said, we want to remand him on bail because he failed to change his address, and we also want to find out what his new address is. And the judge told him, yeah, so he can leak it. And the judge told him to go and fuck himself.
Right.
Which, if you'll remember, that was the judge now was the public defender when I got in trouble in that county. So I've met the judge that's judging this case. And that does sound like something he would do. So, well, that's what I have for that. You want to grab a little bit of live chat here, and we'll see what we can scrap out of the rest of this agenda?
Yeah. Agent 2159 said, wasn't there a song that was supposed to be played when we yeeted your corpse through the window? I don't remember. I will have to go back and look through the Facebook comments to see. Ron said he agreed with me. That was his feelings. The system had completely failed Micaiah. I don't know if it's Micaiah or Micaiah. If I'm saying it wrong, I'm sorry. I hate saying people's names wrong. Quest said he's deeply concerned many people are being taught that they have no agency and no consequences for their actions. I'm glad you found your way. Oh yeah, we have, I'm not sure if Honeybee is brand new or if she was here maybe while I was gone, but she said that she was in the foster care system and it was basically her own fault that her parents were good people and that she was a very willful and difficult child. She said, I was just bad. My mom and dad were good people, but it was me. I was awful. She managed to turn her life around though. So I'm very proud of you, honey. Thank you for doing that for yourself and for everybody who's in your life now. I'm sure they appreciate it too. Quest said, yes, she's fully responsible for her actions, but I feel for her. It's tragic. Yes. Quest said, so classy of the foster dad to kick the other girl in the head. I don't know that that was her foster dad. Her foster mom was not home at the time, but I don't know where her foster dad was or if there even was a foster dad. She may have been placed with a single mom. Some states are more lenient with single parents being foster parents. Matthew says, Starlink is awesome. Ron is also following Starlink.
Yeah, I don't know enough about that. I would definitely look into it.
I have to Google it because I think I might know the person. Oh, it's SpaceX is developing low latency broadband internet system to meet the needs of consumers across the globe.
Nice.
Okay.
Did you see he's about to be on Saturday Night Live as a host coming
I
up
did see
next
that,
month?
like May 8th.
Yeah.
Quest said keep the music. Agent 2159 says keep the music. We might have to keep the music.
We're actually getting a new song coming up here. Steven's putting it together right now.
Okay. Do I get veto power on that? Or
I'm gonna see how far he is, because especially with the lo-fi-ish chill sound to it, I'm gonna see if he can integrate that into it. If he hasn't already finished it up and is going with it, but I'll reach out to him afterwards.
Honey says, I've been subbed a long time. I don't always chat, but thank you. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think that's about where we ended last time.
Okay. I got a couple more that I want to go over. I've cut a few of these back out of here, but there are a couple things that I do want to touch on with the Biden administration because they were stories that fell to the wayside in the wake of the Chauvin trial, and they are things that we need to look at. And the first one I want to grab is this one here from Bloomberg because as of right now, Biden is eyeing a tax rate as high as 43.4% on next economic package. Now, this is going to be only for capital gains at this point. So it's not going to be like the rich are getting their highest not marginal tax rate. I'm sorry. This will be a capital gains. But, of course, as soon as we figured out that this was coming, Bitcoin sank from 63,000 down to 48,000 because, and especially in this market, where are the two places that most people are getting their capital gains from? Real estate and Bitcoin.
Yeah, real estate and investments of some kind.
So it's looking at, and the market's actually, the Dow dropped off.
That's going to be completely destroyed here in about 18 months.
What do you mean? Bitcoin or investments?
The real estate market's going to tank in about 18 months. Give or take.
I don't think it's going to take 18 months. As soon as some of these foreclosures start coming due,
yeah,
the evictions and foreclosures start coming due.
Later this summer in September is when the eviction moratoriums expire and everybody's going to have very large bills to catch up on.
Yeah, I am so glad that I stayed on top of that throughout this entire thing.
Yeah, so.
Because it's contracted.
Next year's going to get really hairy.
You stocked up on popcorn?
No.
You should. Because this is going to be fun to watch.
What is it?
What happens when the eviction moratorium goes up?
Oh, I thought you had a video queued up.
No.
I'm not excited.
So what do you think about the investment tax rate going up, though? Obviously, taxation.
I think it's a bad idea.
Well, one of the things
in this climate, in this economy, I think that's a bad idea.
One of the things that was brought up, and I actually looked back onto Yahoo News ran an article this morning that I found interesting, is that when they do a tax hike like that, the years that they've done, it always seems to be a boom in the stock market through that, which there were some various ideas, and I had some various ideas to that too. But I mean, looking at right now, especially given the fact, like you said, real estate's going to collapse, and some of these rental properties are going to collapse too, because now they're going to sit back and realize that they can't get the back money off the back rent.
Yeah, that money's just never going to materialize because people that work. That's what I've been saying this whole time, is that what the government gave people in stimulus money to replace money that they lost for months upon months of being out of work because of mandates did not cover back pay.
No.
And that when all the libertarians were just screaming, we'll just open the economy, as if that would solve the problem immediately. It doesn't, because it doesn't take care of your back pay. It doesn't take care of the money that you lost when your business was forced to close.
And even if people are getting back and they just get back into the workforce and start paying that back rent
Some people's
almost
jobs
immediately.
didn't come back.
Well, hear me out off this for a second. What people go back to work all of a sudden, and now they're paying into this back rent that they have.
Mm-hmm.
They're putting all their money in because they're contracted. They want to get it out of their way as possible. What happens to consumer spending at that point?
It
You're
goes
not
down.
going out. You're buying your iPod, your new laptop, your anything else like
Right.
that.
Right. So it's a double whammy.
And then people are going to have to either cut the prices so low just to get people to go and buy stuff, even sometimes undercutting their business. This is a spiral that's I'm both looking forward to and also not looking forward to.
Right. Exactly. It's going to be worse than 2008. For sure.
I'll be able to buy a house for $20 though, so.
Right. This might be the time. This might be the only time millennials will be able to afford their first home. A lot of them.
I got another one here that I thought that you might find interesting from the Biden administration. President Biden went through and he visited a local electric bus manufacturer, Proterra, that is in Greenville, South Carolina, which isn't that where you were staying?
It was. That's where I lived for part of last year.
Yeah. So this is it's an electric bus company. They provide municipal buses. I believe they provide school buses too, all electric. They do not provide the batteries. That was one of the first mistakes that some of these articles made because they first said that he was going to tour a battery plant. They actually do not provide the batteries for these vehicles, but they do provide the buses, and it does look like Biden is going to push for a contract to get more municipalities buses through specifically Proterra. And then I found out, doing a little bit more digging from Forbes, that Biden's energy nominee holds energy investments, including interest in Proterra.
Of course he does.
She.
She.
Jennifer
That's right.
Granholm, Biden's nominee for Secretary of Energy, holds more than $1 million worth of stock options in Proterra.
Oh, nice. That makes so much sense now.
She was also the first woman governor of Michigan.
Of course. Okay.
Yeah, Silent Caster had a lot of fun with that because when he still lived in Michigan, he was living under her as a governess at the time.
Cronyists will do crony things.
Remember when everyone accused the Donald of getting all his big business buddies in to get them rich, and they said that as soon as they got Donald out, that was never going to happen in the government again?
Hatch Act. Where's that at now?
You know, I remember distinctly 4 years ago when nobody knew what the Hatch Act was.
I did.
Now everybody talks about it constantly.
But yet they haven't mentioned it in as far as this goes.
Well, this technically wouldn't be the Hatch Act. This is just corporate corruption and embezzlement at that point.
True.
But yeah, I thought that you would find that interesting.
I don't find it interesting because that's literally how government has worked for decades.
Yeah. Swamp's gonna swamp.
Pay to play, friends. Pay to play.
Speaking of the swamp, guess what else passed the House this week?
Do I really want to know?
The state is going to, well, I'm sorry, not the state. The district is possibly going to become a state if the House gets their way at this point. The
Oh,
vote
that's
happened.
right. That's right. I remember that now.
So immediately before this, Nancy Pelosi had this to say. Let me get this one up here. This one. Well, let me get rid of the other one first. All right. I still have that one queued up. Nancy Pelosi had this to say immediately prior.
By voting for D.C. statehood, the House of Representatives reaffirms this truth that all deserve a voice in our democracy. To hear Congresswoman Holmes Norton talk about equality for the people of the District of Columbia, equality because of equal representation in the Congress. I salute her, the patron saint of D.C. statehood. Thank her for her decades of persistent, dissatisfied leadership. H.R. 51 has a record-breaking number of original co-sponsors. Congratulations. Again, I thank our leader, Mr. Hoyer, has been relentless in this fight as well. Chair Carol Maloney and Chair Carper, the author of the legislation in the Senate. Our founders built our democracy on a simple promise that every American should have a voice in our government from City Hall to the halls of Congress. Washingtonians, as the Congresswoman said, pay taxes, fight in our wars, contribute to the economic might of our country. But for centuries, they have been denied their right to representation. What does the license plate say? Taxation without representation is one of the manifestations. It is imperative that we correct this injustice, which is also a matter of civil rights and security. As last summer's protests in the January 6th insurrection made clear, D.C. must be empowered to protect its people. If District of Columbia were a state, the chief executive would have been able to call out the National Guard like any other head of a state in our country. Another reason for this to happen.
All right, so that's what Nancy Pelosi had to say about this and how wonderful it is and taxation without representation and everything else. And it looks like the battery on the laptop just gave out. So I don't know if she's going to be back at this point, but we'll get through the rest of this, which I've just got one more article to read on DC statehood, and we will see if we get our wonderful co-hostess back. Let me switch up the scene here for you guys. All right, so let's have a look and see what's going on with this. So, reading from the Roanoke Times, D.C. statehood approved by House as Senate fight looms. From Ashraf Khalil. A decades-long movement to reshape the American political map took a further step Thursday as the House of Representatives approved a bill to make the nation's capital the 51st state. Approval came 216 to 208, vote along strict party lines, which meant that 2 Republicans were gone because it is 216 to 210 is the difference over in the House of Representatives, if I remember correctly. Republicans opposed the idea that given that the new state would be overwhelmingly Democrat, and the proposal faces a tougher road in the Senate where even full Democrat support isn't guaranteed. And there is, and I talked about this on Contemporary as well, there is a much more problem with this, especially given the fact that constitutionally DC can't be a state. And furthermore, constitutionally, if I remember my constitutional law correctly, if the federal government no longer needs the District of Columbia for whatever reason, say they choose to move their capital, which is another thing too, because we are in a situation where in most nations, your capital is in the center of the country, where the country can come out and it's pretty equidistant to every parts of the country, where everybody else can go and have access to the capital. The District of Columbia in our country is not. It's all the way over on the East Coast, far, far away from most of the western part of our country. But also keep in mind that when our country was founded, when this was set aside, the majority of our country was over on the East Coast, and that was centrally located at the time. So, yeah, just say that they come out and they decide that they want to move it. They want to move the capital out. The federal government is supposed to cede that land back to Maryland, which, given the fact that if they do want to make it a state, they would first have to cede it back to Maryland. They wouldn't be able to come back out and make it a state right away. So I don't know where it is that they believe that they're going to make this happen from, but they believe they're going to make it happen. And yeah, that's going to be that. All right. So and that's what I have here. I'm going to do some live chat here and see if I can't get my co-hostess back here for Surprise Stupidity. Let me double check and see if she's coming back. Got my phones going off left and right here. I'll see if she's coming back here. Otherwise, we will come back and head this out. I'll hold it off to see if she's coming back or not. But let's see what you guys are doing. I gotta see where she left off. Oh, lots of stuff here. Yeah, that whole Nightbot thing. I do have to probably bring that down a little bit. Bring down the frequency. But I'm glad I did see that we did have a donation come in. Where are we? We read about honeybees, so... Let's see. Yeah, Honeybee, Elaine was the one that was talking to you through mine because we both shared the Restream robot. So that was actually her, not me, but I do support you as well, and I'm very proud of you as well. So congratulations on bettering your life. Absolutely 100%. Let's see. Where are you? '80s kid. We're going to start from there. It says, Old Nutty Nancy is nuttier than Squirrel Turd. I like that. Quest Fanning says, some people who believe in just following the tyrannical dictate seem to assert that folks aren't acting out of fear. Are they full-on delusional or full-on cult? Agent 2159 says, wasn't there a song to be played? Oh, yeah, we read that. To yeet your corpse into the window. I'd love to find that out actually myself. I'm curious about that as well. Quest Fanning says Rittenhouse should get some money for some of the slander. Yeah, absolutely. They absolutely should. Interesting insight. I don't remember which insight I had. I have a lot of insights. You'll have to be more specific on that one. Robert Barnes has hinted at lawsuits. Good. Absolutely. I think that some of this was read already. '80s Kid has been amazing over here. Let's see what '80s Kid is having to say, and then we'll get a thank you for him. And by the way, I also do owe '80s Kid a thank you because he threw me a PayPal over the weekend, and I was pretty pumped about that. So thank you very much for that. I've been spreading this channel around on Shapiro's videos, Charlie Kirk, and throwing a link on Stick's channel again. I'm trying to get your name out there. Well, thank you. You're doing God's work, and you know this is the little podcast that could. So. We're trying to grow, we're trying to get this bigger, and we're trying to move on and make more off of this because, you know, some of you guys want me to run for president. I don't know why. My presidential mandate would be, don't kill each other and leave me alone. But apparently some of you guys like that idea, so that could possibly be it. Quest says the SNL cast are upset about Elon hosting. Let them cry. I love it. Quest says, ditto, I'm back over 10,000 followers on Twitter, so hopefully it's helpful. I'd like to see 10,000 followers on Twitter one day. I first have to get back to where I was, which was 1,800 before the big purge. I was like 4 shy of 1,800, then they started fucking purging me out. Those cocksmokers. Quest says, Clint of Liberty Lockdown has done a great job laying out how the crisis will play out. Okay. Yeah, I'm interested to see where that's going to go. 80s Kid says, whenever I catch these lives, I get on here. I sent him a $5 the other day through PayPal. Hope he got it. I did get it. I brought it in today, so thank you very much for that. And Quest threw me buy me a coffee as well, which I will be splitting that, so I'll look into that and figure out where it'll be, and I'll split it pre-tax too, so I'll wind up paying all the taxes on it, but, you know, that's how we do. We don't do any 70 cents on the dollar here, I'll tell you that. Quest says, how are they going to make the new tax it just on multimillionaires? They'll come after the middle class in no time. Yeah, well, the multimillionaires know how to hide money. That's why they're multimillionaires. Sorry, that reply was replied to you, Quest Fanning. Oh, okay. Buy a house for $20, but you'll need a $250,000 lock. There'll be a lot of desperate people. There you go. Great tradition of horrible Michigan governors. Do the lands have to go back to the originating states before making a separate DC state? I remember you saying something about that the other day. I have not had a chance to look into that. 80s Kid says, every time Pelosi talks, I want to harm myself. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. See her with a gigantic diaper on her face. Yup. not centuries. If we repealed the 16th Amendment and returned to the states paying for the federal government, D.C. residents wouldn't be individually taxed. Yep, that's actually true, too. And I pointed that out as well, is the fact that I believe that the District of Columbia was exempt from that tax for being the federal land. So, yes, before the 16th Amendment, all the state houses paid the taxes. Then they assessed the taxes against you, the citizen, as they saw fit. And you could choose which state you wanted to live in based on that. So, yes, that would be it. Quest, that one is Susan bait, so I'm not going to read that one, but I like the way you think. Honeybee says, I can't believe they're considering that. And then she has to go. Thanks for stopping by, Honeybee. And that's going to be it for the day. Plus a lot of Nightbot comment. Yeah, I need to fix that. That was way too much. So we'll get that fixed coming up here in the near future. I'll play around with the times tonight so we don't have this going on contemporary in the morning. But definitely, thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat. Looks like we had 12 up at the end, and we will be back on the Libertarian Redhead channel next week. So keep that in mind as well. We'll be welcoming a new Facebook audience once again. So hopefully we can get some of these people converted back around to the YouTube channel as well. It's going to be all that and more. All right, let's get the hell out of here, I think. All right, set that up, and let's do this. All right, so thanks everybody who came by and chatted with us in the live chat throughout the night, kept us honest, kept us on point, and brought us up to Starlink as well. So definitely looking forward to seeing some of you guys, and we'll see you next week as well. Hopefully we can get this whole thing with Trent Ortner to come back and show up without a hitch as well. So definitely looking forward to that. Lots of good stuff coming up to this channel, and hopefully we can see some real growth off of this. I know that charity stream did awesome numbers for this channel, and you guys are out here doing the Lord's work and spreading it back around as well. At some point, if you guys keep doing what you're doing, I'll have to stop calling it the little podcast that could and start calling it the big podcast that could, because it could be coming out to that position as well. So I will be back here at 7-ish tomorrow morning. We're going to see, once again, to see how close we can get to that 7 mark before the end of April even. I know that was my goal for the end of May, but we might get there before the end of April. So watch the Twitter for updates as I get myself used to my sleep schedule again, and definitely looking forward to some of that. Otherwise, Elaine and I will be back here next week to talk a bit more about what happened this week, what's on the news right now, and what's coming up, and we can't even predict. So come back and join us at 5:30 Central Time for more of the Red Ned Show as well. Also, you can go and check out our stuff over on the audio platforms and over on YouTube and over on BitChute.com. You can go check us out over there. Or Apple, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify. You can check us out on any of those platforms as well. I know I'm behind, and we're going to get caught up on that as well. So also go check out my friends, The R-Rated Conservative, The Generational Gap, The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, and The Freckles and Brit Show. Check them all out over there as we continue to finish up our website. So look forward to that as well. Also, as I always say at the end of these programs, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts to draw your own conclusions. I don't have Elaine to ask for words of wisdom to send out, but thanks you guys. Take care and have a good night. We will see you next time.